Hi, everyone. So here we go again with one of the Chats with Shauna episodes. And this is where I don't really have any direction for what I'm saying. I just talk. And the reason for that is I want you to get a good understanding of how someone can ramble in English. Ramble is when you talk with very little direction. And that helps you see how thoughts are connected, what sorts of words can be used to connect, this sort of spontaneous word vomit, you can say. Today, we're going to be talking about my trip up to, more north of where I'm from. I mentioned in a previous episode that I am from Woodland, California. Woodland is a town with 50,000 people, about 50,000, in the north of California. So right between San Francisco and Sacramento, kind of close to Davis, if you're familiar with the university there. It's a very big university for agriculture and also, I think, for medicine. And so I live in Woodland, and I decided recently that it would be nice to take a road trip with my daughter. So I had a little girl named Julia in January of this year, and so she's coming up to 6 months, and it's about time to get out and see things. I wanted to see how possible it was to put her in a car seat and drive for miles and miles. I just wanted to see how long she would last without screaming her head off. So it actually ended up turning out really well. We drove from Woodland to Mendocino. Mendocino is on the coast, probably about 3.5 hours north of me, and it's a coastal city. It's very cute, very quaint. Once you get to the coastline, you see a bunch of rocky formations and just beautiful ocean, beautiful blue ocean in all directions. So we chose that particular place to start out because a lot of people online talk about it being a very relaxing destination. I know that a lot of people go on their honeymoon. Honeymoon is the vacation that you take after you get married. And a lot of people go on their honeymoon in Mendocino because it's just so cute. There are a lot of whitewashed buildings there that are small and wooden with pointed roofs, a lot of white picket fences, a lot of inns. So inns are these sort of cozy bed and breakfasts that you can go to. And like the word bed and breakfast, you are offered breakfast in the morning. So after researching a lot of different hotels and inns, I realized with a baby, it might be best to go to Airbnb. So I think Airbnb is going to be our go-to from now on, just because, I don't want her to start screaming and then the people next door to be angry at us or us to be an inconvenience to anyone. And the place that we booked was phenomenal. It was a little cottage, a short drive from Mendocino. It was at the end of a long, windy path. And the Airbnb host opened up the gate and she had a massive garden. There were flowers in every single location. We got into the cottage and it was just a 1-bedroom with, bathroom, kitchen. That sort of grandma's house where nothing really matches, but cozy. These flower printed couches and curtains and stuff. So that was the place where we stayed. Outside, she had chickens and goats. And in the morning, she brought eggs to us, which I thought was pretty interesting, that eggs that are fresh have a wide range of colors, from white and off-white to light blue, light green. I don't know. Honestly, it freaked me out a little bit. It was very nice of her, but I've had stomach problems in the past and I was a little concerned. Also outside there was a grove. So a grove is a sort of a small wooded area or a group of trees. And she had a grove of redwood trees. So you could walk through there. I walked through there while the sun was setting and the light went through the trees and I walked on the sun-dappled paths. dappled is kind of a weird word, but it means that there was sunlight coming through the trees and throwing light in little specks or little patches on the ground. It's a very nice image when you think of something being sun dappled. Anyway, so I walked through there and it was a great first taste of what the redwoods in Northern California are like. So coastal redwoods run from about Mendocino all the way up through the Avenue of the Giants and even further, actually, sort of close to where Bigfoot territory is. Northern California in general is just a heavily forested area, like I mentioned before in a previous podcast. And so if you're interested in going on hikes, if you like being in nature, then I highly recommend going there. So we started in Mendocino, stayed a few days at this Airbnb, and then we traveled up the coast towards Ferndale. Now, on the way to Ferndale, you have to go through the Avenue of the Giants. And that was another one of the main reasons why we took this trip. Not only just for traveling with our baby, with Julia, but also to see these massive trees, these massive coastal redwood trees, which can span 29 feet in diameter. So over 8 meters, and can be over 320 feet tall. So they're massive. It really must feel like how an ant feels if he's walking just outside underneath the trees. It's very surreal. So I think the best thing to do is to look at some of the pictures just to see. I'll post them actually on Instagram so you can see it, but to see me in relation to a stump or to a trunk of a tree. So, actually those are pretty interesting words. So a stump is a bottom part of a tree when it is still attached to the ground, when the roots are still in the ground and the top has been removed. So sometimes, when you cut down a tree, a stump is left behind. And when you cut down a tree, usually, if it's a big tree, we'll say there's a log. That's a giant middle branch that goes up the center. We also call this a trunk, but a trunk is when it's still attached to the ground. It's still alive. And a log is when it's been cut already. So we went through those. We had a picnic with grapes and fresh sandwiches. And then we walked through the redwood grove. Words can't really describe it. I love how Jerry Seinfeld always says, there's no such thing as lack of a better word. It's just lack of brain capacity to find it. So maybe that's really what's happening here. I just don't have the right words at the time being to talk about that appropriately. Then we went up to Ferndale, and Ferndale is a teeny tiny city that is incredibly well preserved. There's a lot of Victorian houses and Victorian storefronts. So when you walk down the street, it just feels like you're transported back in time. And behind the storefronts, you'll also see the redwoods in the background. It's got a very good vibe to it. So there's some cute little restaurants there. There's a milk factory, and there's a place where you can get grilled cheese sandwiches made with fresh cheese, which is pretty cool. And we stayed in a little barn. I mean, it looked like a little barn, but really it was a very nice Airbnb inside. We honestly wanted to stay for another few days just to relax, but we didn't end up doing that. We drove home after that 3rd day. There's not really much else to say except I'm very happy to have learned that it is possible to travel with a baby, and we're going to be planning a lot more trips. I think the next one may be either to Lake Tahoe, a little bit north of Lake Tahoe, to Truckee or to Squaw Valley, and over to Reno possibly for a wedding, but we'll see. That's it for today, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye. For the full episode containing 3 of my favorite things to do and see in that area of California, as well as the access to the transcript, the MP3, and links to the places I mentioned, including the Airbnbs I stayed at, then visit AmericanEnglishPodcast.com. I'll add the direct link to this episode webpage inside the podcast description. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, bye.